Alright, what's up guys? It's Brian over here with Mustard and Mayo, and today's going to be a big project day for working on the Previa. I've actually got a big announcement which will be probably in my next video, which is part of the reason why we're doing all the work on this van. But I've finally been saving up enough money to kind of knock out a lot more on this car. You know, last time we did like the wheels, we did some other just little stuff. I even did some more little stuff since our last video, including I talked about the front wiper blades, and this time around I actually fixed the rear wiper blade here. Which again sounds stupid, but there's a little bracket that I was able to find as an adapter to make this, you know, a wiper that I can buy at any parts store now. And they actually had it at the Advanced Auto Parts where I was. I guess they had a lot of Toyota enthusiasts there, which is kind of nice. It's not a normally stocked item from Advanced. But anywho, so what we've got today is everything that you see here in the back of the van, and plus some more. So what we've got here is we've got a brand new catalytic converter for this van. And I have this because the one that's on this van is obviously just old and worn out. I'm getting a little bit of a leaking from the flex pipe here, which is the common failure point for these. And then all the gaskets around it are just really kind of messed up on the one that's on this van. So you get this like slight little buzzing noise. And when you've been driving the car for a long time, or driving the van for a long time, you get that nasty like exhaust smell. So this is gonna hopefully fix that. I'm very thankful. I wanted to make sure I got one that actually had the hardware. I don't know yet if this is actually going to have the nuts and bolts. I hope so, because you know those never are reusable. But it does have the new gaskets, which is the main thing that I wanted. So we'll replace that. I don't have a check engine light or anything for it, so I swear to God, I hope this doesn't create one. But my thought is fix the exhaust leak and maybe even make it a little bit more freer flowing if the one that's in the car is clogged up from, you know, being a million years old or something. So we're going to put that on. Pretty excited about that. We've got, you know, typical air filter and fuel filter here. Everything from right here was sourced from Rock Auto, and I was pretty picky on what I was buying as far as the parts. So this right here is going to be an entire brake job. We've got our new rubber hoses, which I've got the uppers and the lowers, so we'll replace both those. Now this is just going to be for the front. I don't really need to do anything with the rear axle so far and their drum, but I do have a leaking caliper up there, which I've known about. So I'm going to replace that. But what I'm also doing, this is a 92 Previa LE with the single piston front calipers. And the only way you could get the dual piston front calipers, which this thing is kind of a mammoth caliper here. The only way you could get the dual piston caliper is with the ABS systems on these cars. And I think it was only available maybe in 93 plus, I think is when they made that ABS option a thing. And from all I can find on the internet, the brackets and everything on these bolt up exactly the same as the single piston calipers that I have up front. The pads look to be the same, the rotors look to be the same, but it's just the calipers that are different. So it's not a bigger caliper per se. The overall footprint should be the same. I've even kind of done some measuring and seen some photos online. But the main difference obviously is just that we're going to have more surface area to clamp onto that rotor with. So in effect, we're going to be doing a big brake kit on this Previa. Although it's really not that impressive because the later year Previas that had all disc brakes with the ABS had that as an option anyway. So really I'm just making this van a little bit more modern than what it is right now. So as I said, we've actually got some other parts that are being held by a friend of mine. Man, the gnats out here are just insane. I don't know if you can see them. There's little black dots every now and then, freaking everywhere this time of year. But yeah, the other parts that we've got on standby, they're held at my friend's AutoZone store, is there's definitely some oil leaks on this thing, like typical. It's more than likely one or both. It's either the valve cover or it's going to be the distributor O-ring or O-rings in this case. So we've got some of those. And then if we're going to take the valve cover off and do all that, then we've got spark plugs and wires and distributor cap and all of that as well. So that stuff is kind of in hold. So what we'll do is we'll get this thing packed up the rest of the way, and then I'll head over there to his shop and we'll kind of get started. And I'll do my best to kind of take some video as we're kind of doing things. It's, you know, him and I, and I'm not like the typical YouTube blogger with this. These videos are more just for, you know, my documentation for anybody else that, you know, might need to know kind of what's going on with a Previa in this instance. So I'll try to document as we're working on things, and we'll kind of see how it is at the end. All right, so we're over here at AJ's shop basically, and we got everything up on the lift. So what we're going to be doing again is we're going to be replacing these calipers, which you can see here are the single piston calipers. Everything should bolt up and fit with the dual piston calipers, so that'll be a slight upgrade there. Here is the worn out catalytic converter that we're gonna be replacing because I'm pretty sure it's leaking here. And then I did notice that up top here, if you can kind of see, there's a bolt missing. So that's probably where another exhaust leak is coming from. But we're just gonna replace this whole entire section here. You can see I've already started to remove the first oxygen sensor. And then the other thing we're gonna try to do as well, outside of like a couple small fuel filters, which on this van is located here. So this is underneath the driver's side. So that's a very quick job, bolt on the top, bolt on the bottom, and the whole thing will come off. As you can see, we've got a decent amount of oil leaks going on up underneath it here. So here's the oil leaks. What we're gonna be doing is gonna be replacing the valve cover, which is right through here, and more than likely pulling the distributor right here on the end, and checking the O-rings on the end of that as well. So that's gonna be the project. All right, so we are already tearing into the front brakes here, and as you can see, I already knew about this problem, but we've got the front caliper is leaking, and if you can kind of tell, it's been leaking all over the brake pad and probably on the rotor here as I'm driving. So that's probably the reason why there's kind of a little bit of a greasy feeling with this car from time to time. So obviously we're gonna get this broke off. Pretty much everything's come off really easily except for these bottoms. So we'll see if it comes off. Nice. Torque, man. All right, so working on the cat back here, we have the 3 bolts off on this side, which again, this one was already missing to begin with. So this is ready to come off. We now have both of the oxygen sensors unplugged, which I will remove those if possible once this is down on the ground. And this is gonna be the worst part of it here. So here is the back 2 bolts, and this one doesn't look too bad on this side, but you can see this side is already foobarred, and you can really tell how bad and rusty these things are from the back. Just look at how much material is missing from these. Like, these used to be squared off bolts or nuts, and you can easily see they have got all these pits and all this extra crap right here. So I've got some easy outs that I'm gonna try to pull those out with, but I've got a really good feeling that's not gonna work, and I'm gonna have to probably grind those out. So that's gonna be the fun there. Again, coming back up front, we pretty much got these off. We'll just pull the rest of the pads off here, and same with the other side. And then we'll start test fitting the new calipers and make sure that they do actually fit on this bracket. All right, sit rep. So we've got the catalytic converter off, which of course required a ton of grinding on the rear to get those 2 bolts off. So you can just kind of see how nasty this is, and you can hear the rattling around. It's definitely leaking from here. I don't think this is too bad. It looks like this oxygen sensor has been replaced, so we're gonna try to save that, and we're gonna see if we can get this one off without having to replace it as well. And then of course, here's the new converter looking all shiny, and thankfully this one came with all of the gaskets and even the hardware. So the back 2 studs that we had to basically dismember are in good shape. We can use the new ones. And as far as the front brakes go, we actually have the driver's side set up on. We've actually got the larger rotor. We've got the new pads, which are exactly the same as the old pads, surprisingly, and the new dual piston caliper on here. And we had to make some modifications to the dust shield, just move it out of the way because the rotor is bigger. I'll put a picture of that on here. And we're doing the same thing on the passenger side here, but it seems like this bracket is just a little bit tweaked. Like maybe this bracket on the core came off a wrecked car, because while the rotor centers itself perfectly fine over on the driver's side, I think there's a little bit of a tweaking right here because this is actually just making contact with the rotor. So I'm trying to see if I can massage this bracket back straight so that the rotor will fit on there and there won't be any clearance issues. So that's kind of where we're at. All right, so it's the end of day 1 of working on the van. Unfortunately, I didn't get everything done. We're gonna have to work on this tomorrow, and we actually had some problems with the brakes, although not so much with the install, just with the parts that came. So let me just kind of walk you around real quick, and I'll show you kind of what we've done. And I think I'm just gonna upload a part 2 to this, since it's kind of, as you can see, close to the end of the day. So I'm gonna have dinner and shower and all that kind of stuff, and then I'll show you kind of what all we're gonna work on tomorrow. All right, so most exciting is the fact that we do have the brakes completely finished on the front driver's side here. If you can actually tell, we do have a much larger rotor. I mean, I'd say probably about at least a 1/2 inch overall diameter than what we had before. Then of course we have the 2 piston caliper, and believe it or not, the brake pads for this are the same exact brake pads, regardless if it's the smaller brakes or the bigger brakes. That was kind of weird, but I did test fit it. They look just like the ones that came off of it, so I thought that was kind of bizarre. But these calipers with the brackets, which is the main thing, is off of the 4-wheel disc brake, I think with ABS system. Now, obviously, my car has got drum on the rears and it does not have ABS, but everything's still bolted up just fine. The only issue I had, and again, this is just a parts problem, was on this side. For some reason, the bracket that came with the caliper was incorrect. I think someone just sent in a bad core. I was really having issues with the clearance, and I was actually just going to shim it to center the rotor on there correctly. But then I actually noticed that the outside brake pad did not fit, but the inside did. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but I do have another caliper coming. Now, it's kind of ghetto, and I was kind of curious just to prove how much these brakes do interchange. This is the new caliper. So if you can kind of tell by these two squares, that is the dual piston caliper on the original bracket with the original rotor and the brand new brake pads. So if that sounds kind of stupid and sketchy, it's because it is stupid, but maybe not sketchy. It actually drove great. We bled everything out. Obviously, I just, you know, it would probably pull to the left if I was being honest. So I just didn't drive it hard just for my friend's shot back to the house. Obviously, we're back here at the home. And I've already got the new caliper coming to be here tomorrow afternoon. So we'll get all that resolved. So we'll get that, we'll get the new rotor on, and then we'll replace this bracket. It kind of sucks because you have to do half the job of doing the brakes that we already put back together. But I had to be able to drive it back, and I didn't want to put the other stuff back, the old stuff back on the other side. So we just had to do what we had to do. The other thing is, it's kind of boring to show you, but we put the air filter in, and we put the fuel filter in that I pointed out earlier in the video. Those were pretty quick and easy jobs. The last thing that we put back together is the catalytic converter, although this is a to be continued as well, because I don't have my keys on me. I'll have to maybe show you on the next video. But it is leaking worse now than it was before, and it's specifically from the way the flanges are. So, see if I can get some light going. So up here, where you've got these 3 bolts that I pointed out when we were taking everything off, there's these weird little donut gaskets that go inside between the pipe and the inside there, and then everything kind of seals around it. And the ones that they sent me were basically like metal, like steel O-rings. They were just round on all edges, and they don't seal, so there's massive gaps coming around the top of it, and it buzzes like crazy. There is a slight bit of an exhaust leak from the rear, and I think it just could be from maybe cleaning up the flange a little bit more. I do have some extra exhaust gaskets that I'm going to try. I even found an exhaust gasket which I think will actually fit around the shape of this front flange. So I'm actually just going to try to replace. I do have other donuts that seem to be more correct. So I am going to try both methods just to see which one actually does a better job at sealing that up. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to do that tomorrow. And if you can't tell from underneath of here, we didn't get a chance to knock out the valve covers or any of the oil leaks, but I did go ahead and pick up all of the parts. So I've got a new distributor cap, which is right there, and I do have new wires in hand as well as new plugs, and I've got some O-rings, and I've got the valve cover gasket and whatever comes with it, probably some grommets and stuff like that. So tomorrow I'm going to work on that while I wait for my caliper to come in, and hopefully we can kind of get this leaking situation done so it's not dripping on the exhaust, as you can kind of see here for the big announcement that I have coming up, which again I will do after everything is put back together. You can see some more oil leaking there. I'm pretty sure it's running down from the engine also, but it's an old car, it's going to leak. That's pretty typical. This catalytic converter fit okay in here. We did have to kind of twist it to make sure everything was up, but part of that could just be because of the rear flange being kind of a little funky. But anywho, we'll get that finished tomorrow, and you can just kind of see from inside here, we've got a ton of parts here. Here's all the different wires, the spark plugs, the NGKs are in there, the Felpro gaskets, all of that. Here is the bracket that came with that caliper on that passenger side, which was incorrect. And if we were to look at this like this, with this being the back, this being the front, top and bottom here, the rear pad was perfectly fine, the one that would normally slip in right here, and it fit perfectly even with the clips and everything. But these were incorrect. This should be a little bit wider. I probably can't see. This should be a little bit wider here, and the pad actually would not fit in there at all, but it would fit fine in the old bracket. So this is just incorrect. Then you can see here is the larger rotor that will go back on that front as well. So yep, that's gonna do it for today. I'll probably have the part 2 up, where we'll finish up everything in the next 24 to 48 hours. So I appreciate everybody for watching this so far. Thought it was kind of cool we were able to do a big brake kit on the Previa, even though it's not completely finished yet, but I was able to get that wrapped up tomorrow. And yeah, thanks again. Have a great day.